with the Foraging update, we received a complete overhaul of Kudra, and lots of people claimed it would die, so I did over 500 runs after the Foraging update to find out how it's changed. First thing we should talk about is how the Kudra loot has changed. The old system basically gave you a guaranteed minimum amount of loot from Crimson Essence, and you would get pieces with attributes on them that could supply extra cash if you rolled decent attributes like Magic Find, Mana Pool, and other used ones. You could also drop certain combinations of attributes that were very much more desirable as main pieces, which people called God rolls. With the attribute update, they obviously needed to completely change this, so now instead of getting attributes on your gear, you get Kraken shards every run, as well as being able to salvage the blank gear you get for more Crimson Essence. What this has led to is more guaranteed income per run, but less variance in the types of chests that you can get. Basically, all the rare shards from the new Kudra, like the non-K shard that has a whopping 1 in 625 chance to drop, can just be fused by using a bird family shard and a Kraken shard. Which is basically the TLDR of all the shards from Kudra, is you can kind of just get them from fusing much easier than grinding them by only doing Kudra. So yeah, they are nice, but it would be much nicer if they weren't fusible to provide more excitement from getting those specific shards as rare drops. Now, I did a lot of runs since Kudra has had its rework, over 500, which is a lot, and I can tell you how much I would have made doing all those runs, but luckily Hypixel actually made the full loot table and drop chances public, so I can just give you a theoretical estimate profit per run and multiply that by how many runs I can get per hour to see how good of a money-making method this is. Since on Kudra currently you just buy every single chest and make profit, you can actually just sum up all the different items sell prices multiplied by their drop chance and you'll get the profit per run. Let's start with the guaranteed drops being 2400 Crimson Essence with the Kudra pet buff, which at current 1k per essence is 2.4 mil, as well as 3 Kraken shards and 3 Kudra teeth, which is 1.95 mil. Minus the key cost of around 2.8 mil comes out to a guaranteed 1.55 mil profit per run. Now for the RNG drops, I tabled all the drop rates for the primary drops here, which came out to a total of 1.16 mil. And for the secondary drops, I did the same thing and got 711k, which ends our total at 3.42 mil profit for every single run. Now for the time per run, it varies pretty heavily on the level of the party. Lower end parties will normally average above 2 minutes per run, whereas average parties will be a bit below that, and good parties will average about a minute and a half-ish, so I'd say a realistic range of runs per hour is in between like 25 and 40, depending on your party, which comes out to about 85.5 mil per hour at 25 runs, and a whopping 136.8 mil per hour if you're hitting 40 runs per hour. That's if your party is top of the line. These numbers also don't include people leaving your party and having to requeue in Party Finder, so it's definitely ideal if you can find groups of players that want to play for long periods of time and don't require much downtime. Alright, so now you know how much money you can make, let's look at how Kudra itself has changed. There weren't any direct changes to the overall flow of Kudra, but the big thing is attributes being removed off armor. The biggest impact here is not being able to have Mana Pool and Lifeline on Terror. This leads to much less Endstone Sword and Mana Drain value, which has, from what I've seen, pretty much entirely killed the insta-kill Rend. The highest pull I've seen was like 20 mil, so yeah. One thing you should definitely know is Lifeline is still the meta here. They actually silently made Lifeline multiplicative, so now although it's only at 25%, it's a straight 1.25 multiplier on your damage, so definitely still worth doing. Now if you watched my previous video on Hollow Armor on Kudra, you might be wondering how that's changed. With Rend being nerfed a ton, the buff from Hollow provides is actually a lot more useful now, and you might even consider using it. One thing to note is that since Mana Pool was removed, Aurora got compensation buffs to make up for the lost mana, but unfortunately Hollow did not receive the same compensation buff, so instead of being slightly worse total mana than Aurora, it's actually quite significant now. If you use Hollow, I just recommend using a Wax Gauntlet of Contagion as your last equipment piece, which pretty much just resolves all issues clearing mobs, but if you're just getting into Kudra, you might struggle with lower level Hollow gear and stats. Yeah, that's pretty much the extent to how Kudra's changed after the Foraging update. If you found the video entertaining or informative, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Okay, peace.
Wait.